I'll try to illuminate the point by pivoting into politics, because I think that
we
sometimes when we talk about God and religion, we establish sort of special distinctions and categories that are not normal in everyday life. So I'm going to throw out a bunch of beliefs.
Okay.
I believe it's likely that Trump will be reelected.
I do too.
I believe that if Bernie were elected, the day after, the stock market would take a severe hit.
A more severe hit than it has in the last couple of days?
Probably. Because Bernie would be a walking virus for 4 years.
I don't believe that, but that doesn't mean that I'm convinced you're wrong.
Correct. So what I'm getting at here is, now again, I'm making these statements of I believe that if Trump is reelected, the market will do well over 4 years. But when I say these things, I'm stating beliefs anchored in my knowledge of politics. There's no empirical fact that I'm leaving out. And it would mean no objection to these beliefs for you to say to me somehow, Dinesh, my position on this is actually rather Jesuitical. I draw a distinction between warranted belief and beliefs that are ultimately don't have sufficient warrant. I would say we're talking about the future, Matt. None of us knows, I grant that. In that sense, it resembles life after death. We're plugging in all the data we have, and we're making a judgment about something that affects our life, just like life after death does. We have to act upon it because we have investments and portfolios. We have to cast our own vote. So we're going to make decisions about the future based on what we think is going to happen. My belief is in no way irrational because I cannot have either certitude about it, or I don't have the kind of empirical evidence that would enable me, in some senses, to declare the belief warranted.
No,
it is warranted.
So, first of all, here we go again. I don't disagree. The thing is that you have beliefs about what's likely to happen in the economic and political realm, and you base it on actual data. I have no objection to that at all. But this, I think, gets to the heart of where and how you and I are dramatically different. Not just in epistemology and what may or may not warrant believing in something without evidence, because I can't imagine both acknowledging, I have no evidence, but I believe it anyway. That's not the same thing as what we're talking about now. You have a lot of evidence. You have market research. You have other information. You know what's likely to happen. You know where the majority of people are, what they're looking forward to. Here's the marked difference between the two of us. At every instance tonight, when we got to something that was potentially political, or that was about policy, you went to money. Where are they spending their money? Are they building this on the coast? What are the markets going to do? What is this going to do? I don't give a rat's ass about money. I give a rat's ass about human beings. And as a humanist, I'm looking at how the world can be better with policies that lift people up. And I'm not talking about, I have no problem with Bernie. I voted for him before. I'm not a Bernie or buster. I'm not a Bernie bro. Matter of fact, they annoy the crap out of me. And yet I will be supporting probably, almost certainly, whoever the Democratic nominee is for a number of reasons. But I think the big one is I have a focus that is on human beings and doing whatever we can to lift people up, and not to make rich people richer or to make markets just better so that we can say we made markets better. Because if the market goes nuclear and it's not like we're not already the wealthiest country as it is, but if we all got, if we all got wealthier, if the United States market just went through the roof, I don't think we've lifted all boats. I think the gap in income, the gap in wealth, the gap in value of human beings is widening, and I don't think focusing on the market is the fix for that.
Okay. First of all, in the 2 or 3 times that I've cited markets, my purpose in citing them was as mechanisms of information. In other words, a market is a sign of how seriously people with money who have to put their money on the line take a piece of data, right? So I'm not using the market as the market is always right. I'm simply using the market as if people really thought this was going to happen, they would start moving their cash. And that's just a fact about people.
Sure,
right?
I have agreed.
Okay.
If somebody really thought this is what the market was going to do, that's where they'd move their cash.
Exactly.
But what they think about the truth has no bearing on what the truth is. Just like the number of people who believe something, how strongly
okay,
they
you
believe
said
it,
that.
whether they're going to,
Okay.
that's not a thing.
Now, you threw this contrast up between, you mentioned the issue of inequality.
Yeah.
And you said you don't care about markets, you care about people.
I was being hyperbolic.
Hyperbolic, but let's
Of
zoom
course, I
into
care
that
about
a little
markets.
bit.
It's not like you throw it out.
Of course, but what I was going to say is this: the reason, and I agree, by the way, we have more inequality now than we had, for example, in the 1970s.
Mm-hmm.
And it is true also that CEOs and entrepreneurs today make a lot more money as a multiple, let's say, of the average worker than they did in the 70s. The reason for that, I think, is because CEOs in the 70s didn't do a whole lot. If you were a CEO of Hewlett-Packard or Ford Motor Company, by and large, your job is organizational. You're an administrator. You say, I'll open a new plant over here, I'll do this over there. The entrepreneurs who have made gargantuan amounts of cash, I would mention, the obvious ones, even Bloomberg, but certainly Jeff Bezos, certainly Steve Jobs. The reason that they got so rich is precisely because they have augmented human welfare to such a gargantuan degree. Everybody people didn't even, normally we think of markets as supply response to demand. But as far as I know, there's not one person in the world who wrote Steve Jobs and goes, you know what, take an ordinary phone, figure out how it can take photos, let's figure out how it can do email, texting, put all these features, and then get rid of the stylus, use your finger. Here's what I'm getting at. Apple built the phone before we knew we couldn't live without it.
Sure.
And everybody who put money...
I can, though, because I'm on Android.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. But what I'm getting at is everybody who made these people like Bezos and Jobs so rich did it happily by waiting in long lines in the Apple store because of great boosts in human welfare that they were able to create. So I would argue we're living in an entrepreneurial boom. Now, the last time this happened is in the era that progressives call the Gilded Age, but the Gilded Age is also the age of the telegraph, the car, the airplane. So that was actually the biggest communication revolution of all time. We're living through the second biggest one. And all I'm getting at is these are huge amounts of human welfare that have been created by entrepreneurs for which they're being rewarded voluntarily by people who are happy to pay $300 to get a phone. So where does the social injustice come from?
Oh, okay.
Who is Steve Jobs ripped off?
How many phones does Steve actually manufacture?
A lot.
0. Steve Jobs never manufactured a phone in his life.
Well, Apple contracts, so what?
I'm in agreement with you. Entrepreneurs, by all means.
I mean, how many cars did Henry Ford himself personally make?
Yep.
I agree. It was
is,
done by the assembly line.
If we're going to determine how much, the invention itself is important. And there are certainly entrepreneurs who are as self-made as possible. However, that's not the sum total of wealth. And it doesn't mean that if I invent something and then have 25,000 employees, some of which I don't give a particularly good living wage to, manufacture those phones so that I can make as much money as possible off of my invention, that I'm actually doing something that is in the best benefit of society or that is boosting society.
And you get to decide that. You, a magician,
Sure I do.
Sitting here, decide, here's a voluntary transaction. Well, let's elaborate the example so we can see capitalism in its pure form. Let's just say everyone in this audience has $10. So we live in a socialist utopia. We all have $10, okay? And then you stand up and do a magic trick, and you say, I'll do this magic trick if some of you would agree to pay me $1. Okay? And let's just say the 25 people in the audience said, we'll give you $1. So everybody else clears the room, you do the magic trick, they give you $1. Our perfect equality is now interrupted by inequality, right?
Wait, what's the inequality? Because in that example,
hold on. So
I manufactured 100% of the magic myself.
Correct. But here's the point. The point is that, well, you might have an assistant and you bought equipment and you might have bought that at cheap prices and so on. We'll leave all that aside. The main point is that The guy who gave you the dollar thought your magic trick must be worth at least $1.
Yes, but I'm not complaining about the person who willingly gives Apple money for their phone.
Okay,
And I'm not, by the way, I'm not ragging on Apple or the iPhone or any of that.
right.
I'm saying, yes, there are entrepreneurs, and yes, there are people who justifiably go from nothing to immense wealth. I'm not objecting to wealth. I'm not advocating for an absolute equality where everybody gets $10 and that's all you're ever going to get.
No, but you're stepping aside. Let's take Walmart. The ordinary guy who works in Walmart at the cash register makes $25,000 a year. That's the average pay at Walmart for a cash register guy. The managers at Walmart make about 200 grand. Now the family that owns Walmart makes a killing, as you know. Here's my question. Who are you? These are people who voluntarily show up for work. They could go work at Target. They choose to work at Walmart. They could be at the cashier at Vaughn's or at Kroger's. They want to be at Walmart. They take the best job they have. There's an agreement between them and Walmart about how much to be paid. They should be paid for. All I'm saying is, where do you get to waltz in and say things like baseball players make too much? And
I didn't say that.
okay, or that Apple should be paying more money to its managers because Steve Jobs made more than they did.
It's not because Steve Jobs made more than that. Basically, you're saying, where do I get off coming in when these people voluntarily work?
Right.
And so that if we can get them to work for $1.50 an hour so that they have to work 5 jobs and
But pause here. Let's check the language. What do you mean by get them?
I just let you talk on and on about it.
Okay, go ahead.
You're suggesting that who am I to say that it's a bad move for us to pay some people so little, to pay a cash register worker $25,000 a year? I can tell you who I am to say that. I am someone who may end up in that position, but I'm also someone who may have family members in that position, who may have friends in that position. I'm also somebody who lives and works in a society that benefits from them, and I benefit from them staying healthy and productive in society. It's not to pretend that the massive wealth disparity is all down to somebody had a really good idea and other people agreed to work for a pittance, and that's just fine. It may be true that some people had a good idea and some people work for a pittance, but that doesn't mean it's just fine. It doesn't mean it leads to a better society. It doesn't mean that people can afford health care. And if they can't afford health care, then guess what? They're potentially getting me sick. If they can't, this is why the government steps in to suggest that you need to vaccinate your kids, because vaccines don't freaking cause autism. They protect and save lives. I know you didn't say that.
Yeah.
This is something I would trumpet. And there are people out there who can't have vaccines, who depend on herd immunity. And similarly, they need the person who's checking them out, handling their money, giving them back their change, that when they cough in their hand and hand it back to them, they at least have the same opportunities that healthcare should be a basic human right. And if it's not, then we definitely have to pay people more. The number one cause of bankruptcy in the United States.
The issue of healthcare is worth focusing on for a moment, because to me, the problem of healthcare is really simple.
This is where we talk about Trump.
I didn't say the solution. I didn't say the solution.
Yeah, no.
I said the problem. The problem of healthcare can be summarized in this way. The guy who receives the service is not only not paying for it, but he has no idea what it costs. It never occurs to him or her to ask what it costs. And this crucial fact is known by every provider of healthcare who recognizes that a third man, not present here, is paying for it. And it's going to be very easy to screw that guy because he's not here. And so we will be sending him a bill, which could be as gargantuan as we like, because the guy getting the service is never going to show the slightest interest in the social cost being borne by that third guy. Let's call him the taxpayer. So it's a rip-off scheme, engineered ultimately, and everything would work like healthcare if we allowed it to. You said healthcare is a right. Well, I would say eating is a right. I have a right to eat. I shouldn't starve. I live in a prosperous country. So let's say I were to tell you, all right, you have a right to food. When you go to Vaughn's to fill your cart, just take what you think you need. And go to the counter, and then they'll just check you out. And so you look at the milk, and milk was, normally it's $2.50, and you buy 2 cartons. You say, I'll buy 10, because I'm not paying. So you fill up your cart. You show up at the counter. Now, here's the important point. Your behavior is completely understandable. You're taking as much as you can. the guy behind the counter, by which I mean the management, they realize that the guy in the line is not paying. So they realize milk doesn't have to cost $2.50, it could cost $25. Why? Because that guy's not going to ask, and he's not going to care. And so, as long as we get to shaft some third guy who's going to be paying for it, we're going to jack up the prices. And what I'm trying to say is that that's in all the areas where we want entitlements, that's the scam that we've been subjected to. Colleges. Why do you think my daughter went to Dartmouth? Cost me 63.
Because you did.
Because I did. Yes.
If you ask the easy questions, I got to take them because I know I'm going to get them right.
Yes, that's an easy one. But why does college, in an age where technology should make educational delivery services easier, in an age where colleges already have gigantic endowments, why these high bills? And the answer is really simple. The guy who's walking in the door is not paying. The college knows he's got a $10,000 Pell Grant, he's got all these loans, people willing to put... So what we do is, even though inflation is 0% or 1%, we're going to increase our fees 20% every year for the past 30 years. Why? Because we are conspiring with the student and his family to screw the third man who's not here. So what I'm trying to get at is that...
Hang on. Hang on.
You are, exactly. And so either you are aware of this and will be voting for Trump, or you're a happy sucker who wants to pay even more, because he is okay with this collective ripoff scheme.
Yeah.
But if the guy who got the services was paying our healthcare, let's think of it this way. Let's say the government were to say, all right, the people that you're worried about who go bankrupt, they do that because of catastrophic health situations, right? Catastrophic health situations are, I need a heart surgery, I need a new lung, and this is going to cost $100,000, I don't have $100,000. What I'm saying is we could insure the entire American population against catastrophic events, kind of like hurricanes and so on, except in this case disease, and allow people to pay, at least people who are not poor people on Medicaid, pay their routine health care bills.
Wait, are you okay with Medicaid?
I'm okay with Medicaid for the poor who can't afford it, yes.
Socialist?
No, it's not socialist.
No, I know. It's just
I'm a safety netist.
I'm just waiting.
Yeah.
There's a couple points I have to address.
Okay, so the point I'm trying to make is, in an American healthcare system where we paid our routine healthcare bills, and the government insured us against catastrophic illness, you would magically begin to see healthcare prices plummet. You go to the doctor, he goes, I'm going to run 7 tests. You're like, really, 7 tests? Just because I have a cold and a sore throat? What are the 7 tests? Why do I need 7 tests? Suddenly the guy next door would be offering 4 tests and half the price. And I'd walk across the street because I'm paying. If the government gave us a $10,000 healthcare voucher and said to you, listen, if you can spend it all on healthcare, but if you only spend $1,000, you can pocket the other 9. Notice the tremendous behavioral change that would sweep across this country. Suddenly people would demand to know what healthcare should cost, and it would change the system. So that's all I'm saying. You're fighting a caricature, whereas I'm saying there are better ways to run these things and deliver the safety net we want. And I think Trump represents that. It's not obvious he does, but that's what he does.
I would agree.
Hey, Matt, we have time for your response here.
Yeah,
but
I got to respond to this.
We'll have to wrap up after that.
Yeah, because... so, wow, I just lost like half my train of thought right there. As soon as we mentioned Trump, it just happens every time. Okay, so... there are things about the system that I'm in complete agree with you. I'm not denying the facts. There are certain things about what you said where you're talking about the guy going in for services is not paying for it. The unfortunate fact is that there are guys who are going in who are paying for it directly because of problems with insurance and other things. It's not always just the insurance. Now, the prices, I agree with you on the economics of how this ends up happening and how they end up raising. The problem is that there are also guys who aren't paying for it because they can't afford it. They don't have insurance. They can't get it. And the example that you came up with of going into the grocery store and taking what you need, first of all, we could have a conversation about food, but I'm not going to go in for 3 root canals just because they're free. I'm not going to go in to have 15 gallbladders removed just because of not paying
Let's
for it.
pause right there.
So
I agree
no,
with those examples, but they're
no,
misleading examples.
No,
they're not
your
typical.
example was monumentally misleading to suggest that it's somehow the problem that if we start giving people health care, that they're going to necessarily take advantage of it, even though we know human behavior will have people take advantage of it, not in the way of let me grab as much milk as I can. That was my problem with the example. There are ways to fix the system to lower the prices so that we're not, because, by the way, the insurance companies are not getting screwed. They're making money. And so the guy who goes in who's not paying for it, it's not the insurance guy that's getting screwed, it's everybody else. And the other thing is, if the doctor tells me I need 7 tests, and this doctor tells me I need 4 tests, and I'm not a doctor, what if one of those 3 tests is what I actually need? This is the problem, because we have people who are, okay, yeah, there's people who are lazy thinkers, but generally, I don't have time to become an expert on everything.
No, you don't.
And so I have to rely on experts. And so if the doctor says I need 7 tests, going to the guy that's got 4 tests doesn't mean I've done anything to improve the likelihood that I'm going to be healthy. It just means I saved a couple dollars. And if the focus is on getting me healthy, and we change the way the health system works so that people can go in and get whatever tests the medical community feel are necessary to best diagnose their thing, to best diagnose their issue, that's what we should be aiming for. I'm not proposing any solution. I'm not an economist. I don't necessarily buy into what individuals are saying. I'm just saying if we're going to use examples, let's put the blame where it should be. Let's put the responsibility where it should be. It's not somebody coming in to screw over their insurance company because they're in pain. And the insurance company is going to pass on that cost to all of us. So the real scam, from my perspective, and I fully acknowledge that I could be monumentally wrong here, is that you want to call it a scam in that there's a conspiracy amongst the medical community to scam the insurance community out of as much money as they can. And my view is that it's a scam in the sense that we've convinced people that healthcare needs to be expensive and that it's not something that people should have access to. And if we just point to this is the scam, the true scam is when we make it so that there are people who are dying for treatable things. Because the person who goes in to get their flu shot protects you and me too.
Of course.
And it helps us to have a healthier society. It's not 10 gallons of milk. And by the way, there are people who need probably 10 gallons of milk. They have way more kids than I'm ever going to have. I'm never going to have kids. And once upon a time, I had this notion of, why the hell should my tax dollars go to somebody else's kids going through school?
Yeah, but that's not what I'm saying.
But they should go to that, because those kids are part of my community. They're going to be the ones that are working. They're going to be the ones that are curing whatever cancer I end up with in 20 years. It's worth it, even though I don't have kids, to provide and contribute to the society that I benefit from, which I don't think you deny.
I don't deny that at all.
That was me preaching. That's something I don't think he denies.
Right. So we shouldn't knock straw men here. The scam of healthcare.
Hold my beer.
The scam of healthcare, at least Obamacare, was a scam between the government and the insurance companies against the American people. And here's what I mean. Obama went to the healthcare companies, which he knew would oppose Obamacare because it involved greater federal control. And Obama basically said, listen, guys, I'm going to give you the greatest profit windfall in your history. Why? I'm going to force every living American to buy health insurance. It's not optional. It's kind of like if I were to force every American to buy broccoli. The broccoli industry would be orgasmic with delight. So you are going to be making money hand and foot, because there are a lot of people, young people particularly, who may not even need insurance. They're perfectly healthy. They can make a decision for themselves about whether they want it and what kind of insurance they want. I'm going to shove it down their throat whether they want to or not. In exchange for this profit windfall, I want you to lobby for Obamacare. I want you to fund my campaign. So we will go into this together. And so all the insurance companies, if you notice, were all for Obamacare, running ads for Obamacare. Why? Because Obamacare was a scam perpetrated between the government and the industry, not the first time in history, by the way, on the American people. That's point one. Point two, the vast majority of our healthcare budget goes on older people. Not surprisingly, that's when you need the most healthcare. But that's when your root canal example completely breaks down, because anybody who is in the healthcare industry or works in a hospice or even works in a hospital as a nurse dealing with old people recognizes that we have a massive problem in our society, and it may be more unique to Western society, of loneliness. Loneliness. Old people, by and large, don't live with their kids. They don't see their grandkids. So because of loneliness, healthcare becomes a form of counseling, of therapy. I need this, I need that.
First of all, I'm in favor of counseling and therapy, especially for the elderly.
No, but I'm just saying it is an empirical fact, and you're all about empirical facts in the world. It's an empirical fact that the demand for healthcare in the elderly community is huge. And a lot of it, and some of us may know this from personal example, that people like to see the doctor because because the doctor is, first of all, one of the few people who takes a direct personal interest in them, will spend by and large as much time as they want with the doctor because he's billing.
I get it.
So all I'm getting at is this: it's not like a root canal. You and I hate to see the doctor, we hate to see the dentist, we would never go for any reason other than we are being dragged there by our spouse or whatever. But I'm saying there are lots of people who like going to the doctor, who like to actually discuss their ailments, who think they have more ailments than they actually have.
If you can show that this is a significant contributor to healthcare prices, I'll buy you a steak dinner.
Okay. If I can show you, okay.
I think it's good to end on that. That's a good deal. I think we're going to need like 3 or 4 more hours of conversation between these two guys. What do you guys think?
I don't have time tonight, though.
Not tonight, though. Well, let's just thank you very much, Dinesh and Matt, for taking the time and being brave and engaging in this discourse.
Magic tricks, $1, a little later, out in the water.